Jim and Catie, thank you for coming. I wanted to capture a little bit of our recent interaction because we had a football game in Bath County the other night for Thaddeus, and we had asked if you all could come, and we were really excited, and the children were really excited to see you because we talk about you often and pray for you often. And then right when we had gotten to the game, one of you texted and said, "I'm so sorry, our sow is giving birth. We've been in labor for several hours now." And the children, I just loved how their response, maybe it was tears or Thaddeus was like, "Oh, that makes total sense." Aww. That was their response. But I just loved how they understood this farming life, and it's such to the extent of they were disappointed, but you obviously wouldn't leave to come to the football game because you have this, this more important priority. Anyway, I just love that little snapshot of
that is
life
farming
and their response and a day in the life.
Mm-hmm.
But Jim and Catie, it is awesome to have you on, dear friends, and you all own and operate Fireside Farm over in Bath County, 45 minutes, an hour west of Lexington and Rockbridge County. You raise various proteins on the farm, poultry, lamb, pork, and so we'll dive into your method of farming, how you did it, how you've gotten there, and we're really excited to have you on.
Yeah, stoked to have you guys on. Bath County, I think, is like the closest Virginia gets to a Montana feel because it is, I think, one of the lowest populated counties in Virginia. And it is just gorgeous. There's the best trout fishing river in Virginia is in Bath County. There's so many draws for the outdoorsman. And I'm excited to hear more about how your farm's working out there because it is more remote. So you've got both a tight-knit community, but you've got less people in general there. Yeah. So there's going to inherently be that volume gap that you'll have to account for. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about your farm?
Absolutely. You want me to start?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want more of an origin story or just kind of
let's talk
general
what is
overview?
It briefly overview what it looks like right now.
So right now,
clearly you raise proteins because for people that are just listening and not watching, they clearly eat a lot of protein. We've got two healthy people with us right now.
It's a good
Jim
time.
is jacked, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Protein and fat. Protein and fat. I'm putting on the winter fluff right now, but hopefully that'll subside. So Fireside Farm, we primarily raise pastured poultry and grass-fed and finished lamb. We also will raise out a couple litters each year primarily to supply another local farm, Apple Horse Farm. Our dear friends Saul and Gwen Pasco, they do pastured pork, and so the piglets literally go probably 10 miles down the road. The furthest they ever have to travel is their worst day anyway. So it's a very kind of a cool collaboration there. But all of our pastured poultry, we raise, process, package, and distribute. So it's a very intensive process, but one we take pride in and that we find very fulfilling as well. But yeah, that's kind of we also have a laying hen operation. That is more of a gateway drug than anything else, but it's I wouldn't say it's all that profitable, but it's certainly benefits the pasture and is always a draw for customers to come purchase eggs and then inevitably other products.
Can you describe your partnership with Oakley and like how you don't own the farm?
Correct.
That you're farming. Can you just paint a picture of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it actually, when we first moved to Bath, it was structured more so as a partnership, and now it's probably more of a collaborative where, we lease the barn that we have our cold storage in and our conduct all of our processing. But then there's a lot of overlap between our two businesses where waste products from their cider production benefit our animals. The apple pumice is a great supplement for our pigs. Really, all of our animals, the sheep, the pigs, the chickens, everyone loves it. So that's always fun. And we also are obviously, managing the pastures with our animals, fertilizing. We'll graze the sheep in the orchard rows to help, minimize the impact of equipment, and also fertilize as they go. It's really a cool sort of symbiotic relationship in that regard.
So you've got apple orchard that Oakley Farm makes cider from.
Correct.
And you guys basically graze underneath that orchard and in the extra pastures that are on the farm.
Correct. Yeah.
That is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It sounds very idyllic. It's like when you see the pictures of, like a farm logo even. It's like the tree with the animals grazing underneath it.
It's pretty unique. It doesn't mean that we haven't had some trial and error with that. And we found that our base flock does really well, but when we go from our base flock of 26 sheep to 60 to 70 plus, the orchard, the stocking rate's too great. We're moving the sheep literally, at least twice a day from row to row, and that gets a little intensive. And then they get aggressive and start nibbling on the trees when we're really not trying to aim for that. But Will and Kenny have been very gracious in that and understanding that, hey, we're figuring this out just like you guys are. So it's been cool to fine tune that.
Awesome.
You live on Oakley Farm?
We don't, but it's a stone's throw away. Our bedroom faces the farm. Before we had a guard dog, who we dearly love, Miss Emma, I would have an ear open as I slept out the window. Whenever I heard a coyote sound off, I'd fly over to the farm with a shotgun in my pajamas and, be ready to go Rambo on whatever. And thankfully never had to. But we're very close. We have probably a 3-minute commute. So
I don't think we'd be able to do it if we weren't so close.
100% agree.
Sitting here knowing you all, I think what's cool about your farming story, and that I'm eager to hear more about, is you have the look and appearance, and every interaction indicates you could be doing 100, 1,000 different things, and yet you're farming for a particular reason. Can you go back, maybe after you're growing up, where you all met, and kind of your path to your current operation and what brought you here?
Do you want to start or do you want me to?
You go for it.
Okay.
You too.
I grew up, my dad had some cow-calf pairs, and, he really enjoyed farming, but it wasn't something that I was really attracted to. It was just kind of a passive way of farming, I guess.
Where was that at?
At his farm there in Millboro off of the Cowpasture River. They have a little under 30 acres there. Which is
in Bath County. So
yes.
I didn't know that. That's cool. So you're from Bath County.
I am. Yes.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
born and raised
Okay.
there. Well, actually, I was born at Stonewall Jackson here in Lexington. So, but my mom used to work there. But anyways, so started with that. Really didn't have a whole lot to say about farming. Never pictured myself in the world of agriculture whatsoever. Went off to college. Was an athlete all my life. Went off to school.
Of course.
Yeah. Went off to school to study. I really wanted to get into dietetics. Didn't really know that was my pursuit until I went from being a college athlete to a full-time student, which kind of wish I'd done that, at the forefront, but it's all good. Anyways, ended up studying the health sciences. I think in order to graduate on time, I had to pursue a major called health promotion, which is kind of a silly major, but whatever. Ended up working at a YMCA here in Lowmore as the health and wellness director and a personal trainer and a lifestyle coach and that whole thing. Really enjoyed that, but just realized the office life was not my cup of tea. I had a strong desire to work with my hands and be outside each day and just engaged with my environment. And you can't really do that inside. We also saw a need for more locally grown and sourced food. While Bath County is surrounded by farmers raising, beef and lamb and so on, I didn't see a whole lot of opportunity within the county to actually purchase that. You have your little niche markets here and there, but there wasn't a mainstream push for that. They usually were sold at a stockyard or, shipped elsewhere to be processed. So that was a huge draw for us to start farming. And I thought I'd retire someday and farm as a side thing or like to keep me busy.
Kind of like your dad did, I assume.
Precisely. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And we were given an opportunity. We went actually to. I was an avid reader of Joel Salatin's books, as I know you guys have mentioned. You Can Farm, and I felt so motivated. Like, yeah, I can do this.
You can farm.
Yeah.
That's how my friends in college, when they saw that book on the shelf, they always read it that way.
Yeah.
You can farm. Like, it was like, oh.
I was bit by the same bug. Man.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. There's just this deep sense of purpose, even that you just gather from a book, having never done it before, like this almost calling or duty. But there was a Joel Salatin event. He was a speaker at an event at the Highland Center in Monterey, Virginia, that some dear friends of ours, Steve Fullerton Summers Stevenson.
What?
Yeah,
wow.
they put on
him.
They put on they brought Joel out to speak, and I got my You Can Farm book signed by him and the whole nine. Anyways, we ran into
I love that.
I was so
And you're hooked. That moment
absolutely.
you're in.
Got
So
our
jazzed.
picture taken, all the things. We were
that was
very
like
excited.
the springboard, I guess.
What year was this?
20 was that? Let's see.
17?
Well,
2016.
No, 2016, the year before we started Fireside.
Where were you in the Salatin picture at 2016? Were you
We
here?
were at Big Spring. Yeah, we
Nice.
just bought Big Spring then. I was trying to remember when we met Catie because I think we connected through Miss Tardy.
Yeah,
I believe.
absolutely.
Who owned the farm across the road that we bought in 2018 from Big
Yeah.
Spring. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I was at Kindle at Lexington during that time frame, and
Yeah.
we were looking around.
Jim, when you were at this, when you were getting the book signed, Catie, were you in the picture?
I was.
You were.
Oh yeah, we
Yes.
were married.
I was right there, like, you better add my name to that book.
Yeah. So, where did you enter the picture? Where did Jim enter your picture?
Oh, taking a
Originally.
step back from
Yeah.
like how we met
Yeah.
at Appalachian State. So I was the same major and minor. And we had a class together, didn't see each other again for 2 years till right before he graduated. And I guess right before graduating, he was like, oh man, if I'm going to see this girl again, I better take her out on a date. And so then we got married and I moved to this area, and there's a little bit of some culture shock there. I'm
'Cause
from
you grew up-
Asheville. Yeah, Asheville, North Carolina. And so moving to an area where my neighbors are cows, I was like, what is happening?
Where am I?
Yeah.
Going from spending time with friends like almost every day, it seems, to like not even having really any friends. Yeah, that was a big culture shock.
Oh, I remember making my first friends here in Lexington, and I was just like grasping. I was like, can I please have some friends? I need to find somebody.
Yeah, community is huge. It's funny.
Yes.
I think even if you move to a city, but if you go to college, like my college experience was probably similar to y'all's, that community's just it lives with you. You've got roommates, you've got all this stuff, and then if you move to the country to start a farm, we had the exact same experience where it was like, oh wow, we know no one for hours around, and all our neighbors are really, really old farmers that we're going to be friends with now. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course.
It's just a culture shock.
Did you read the Salatin books as well? When did you get passionate about farming? Because
I did not read the books.
yeah,
She just picked
had-
up on my energy.
Jim was
for
like
them.
Cliff Notes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I had I skimmed some of them, and I had a little bit of a different prior farming experience than Jim. Mine was more of that picturesque, like, farming is so great. Look at all the animals. It's so easy. Come on. And so I grew up going to Hickory Nut Gap Farm, which is a huge farm in North Carolina, right outside of Asheville. And it became a camp for the local community, and that camp slowly grew. But before it grew, I was a camper and then became known as like the counselor once I aged out of being a camper. But again, that whole time was very involved with all of the animals and various farm chores, but nothing like what you actually have for responsibility with a farm. So when I became a health promotion major, that minor in nutrition, and we both kind of saw a need for healthier food sources within our area. I was like, yeah, let's farm. This will be so great.
Because your reference point was Hickory Nut Cat
Yes,
Farm.
yeah.
Who is now working with Whole Foods, I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
I've never heard of them. We got to look them up.
you should definitely check them out. They're good folks.
Yeah.
So what did year one of farming look like? Because you were a nurse, or you were working at the Kendall, the retirement community.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we met. Was that year one of farming as well in 2017-ish?
So Jim was the health and wellness director at the YMCA, and I was kind of the health and exercise manager at Kendall at Lexington. It was more of like physical therapy kind of. But were we farming at that point?
It's always
Well-
fascinating because I feel like people listening that might be thinking about starting a farm or just wondering, how do people start doing this? Everybody has a different inroad,
Yes.
and I'm
Yeah.
fascinated to hear what y'all's look like.
I will preface all this by saying I originally thought that we would have a sort of a market garden. That would be our inroads. I didn't know we were going to get into the animal side of things. So I said, well, this is while I'm the director, the health and wellness director at the Y, and she's working at Kindle. I'm like, yeah, we should plant a big garden. So I carve out a half an acre and we plant like almost half of it. We planned on just putting a cover crop on and letting that rest and the soil kind of develop, and the other half we would actually propagate and just alternate each year. And I think we planted, it was almost 200 tomato plants, tomato, basil, peppers, collards, like all
The
just
works.
you name it. And it was a really cool experience. Obviously didn't utilize, we literally went to the Covington Farmers, Katie went to the Covington Farmers Market a handful of times. And we were just like, wow, we've got a lot of salsa. We've got a lot of goodies here that we just gave away mostly. But anyways, it was a good experience on how to rule out what we were not passionate about.
And that was prior to attending this Salatin
speaking event.
speaking event. Yeah.
So at this event, this is kind of the kickoff of farming. We met Chuck and Luann Neely of Riven Rock Farm and started chatting with them. They're good friends of Stephen Summers, and they proposed more or less loosely then, but we got more serious as time progressed, that they were looking for help on their farm, and if we were looking to start our own farm, that we could start our enterprise in conjunction with them. So I guess a month or so went by, and we were just diligently seeking the Lord about it and trying to just be wise, but also not be timid. And I said, Katie, let's do this. I'm ready to take the plunge. Put in my notice to the Y, and providentially we found a place to live up there about 5 minutes away from Riven Rock Farm that had some acreage on it, so we could do a little bit at our place, a little bit at their place.
So Jim jumped right in. He came home one day from work and was like, Katie, let's do this. And I was like, okay.
You've already pulled me out of Asheville into the middle of nowhere. Now we're going to an even more remote area where I don't know anyone.
So
Is
was
Riven
it-
Rock Bath, or is that Allegheny?
It's Highland.
Highland?
Yeah,
Oh.
so it's north of Monterey.
when Bath people think it's remote,
Exactly.
that's when it's like truly.
Yes, but
Island is also a super beautiful place.
Oh, it's
Yes.
incredible. And I'll say
Absolutely.
this, the community in Bath is phenomenal. We've really developed a strong friend group there, but the Highland community welcomed us in, and which is, sometimes you think, oh, who are these outsiders coming in, whatever, but we were really received well. And that was kind of the starting point where we realized, wow, there's a huge learning curve to this. And, you know, that first year, for a number of reasons, which I'm assuming we'll get into, was, very, very trying. We kind of, I don't know, we found out the hard way what it took to not only farm, but then endure a very significant health struggle in the process. And this was our second year being married. So, we had a lot to navigate.
Did you quit or leave Kendall at the time? You weren't commuting from.
I was.
Wow.
So that first year, starting Fireside, I was commuting to Lexington and actually lived in downtown Lexington for 3 or 4 nights of the week and would go home on the extended weekend.
Oh, man.
And that was a bit challenging. And we were I really, really loved working at Kendall at Lexington. We were waiting to see how the farm would take off and kind of how things would go. And I had no plans on leaving Kendall at Lexington, but just what the requirements of the farm and if it needed both of our management or not. But it wasn't until my health struggles that in 2017, I was actually diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And that kind of pulled me away from all of anything related to working. And so Jim actually ran the entire farm by himself. And I, with the help of my parents, thankfully, they stepped in and I moved away for 5 months. For an entire summer, that first summer of us starting our processing of poultry and everything that we had purchased and invested into the farm. We had a lot of thoughts of, do we need to sell all of this? What are we doing? Why did we quit our jobs? Like all of the things.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
And then so Jim ran all of that summer while I was away doing treatment. So
Where'd you go for treatment? You were gone for 5 months, you said?
To a clinic called AwareMed that was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Okay.
It was a holistic clinic that my parents found. And honestly, to this day, my parents are like, the Lord led us there. I have no clue how or why. We ended up receiving a phone call back from this clinic, but somehow our names came up on their list out of all the different places we were researching. And so we ended up doing an alternative medicine treatment that summer. And again, as you said earlier, without community, we would not have been able to continue for so many reasons. One, alternative treatment is not covered by your typical insurance. So our community stepped up. And 2, with the farm, we wouldn't have been able to continue processing poultry without having our community members that would show up and be there to help with the processing day each month.
And that's the case to this day. Yeah.
At that time, it was it every month that we had processing?
Yeah, we would process. So year 1, we did 1,000 broilers, and just to kind of get our feet wet, which I was, and up to my ears by the end of it. Yeah, and we'd process 250 once a month during the summer, and we were inefficient at best and very inexperienced. But all that to say, Catie, what she had to endure mentally being gone, and then what, me knowing what she's going through while also juggling the farm. And thankfully, 1,000 birds is not going to sustain you as a household, from an income standpoint, especially just selling them as whole birds. So I was able to get a job with who I deem as a master carpenter, Dave Glendenning, who's a neighbor. I learned so much with him, which really benefited me, even now in a big way, just building farm infrastructure and so on. But we were able to just kind of bootstrap it and make it work. Anyways.
One question on that. I think there's so many things that are idealistic about farming. And you read Joe Salton books. I don't think he purposely paints this picture, but you really think this is going to be the best life ever. And especially when you tie it to your nutrition and your health, and it gives purpose to what you're doing. When you got the news, I don't know how that happened, but that you had cancer, what made you continue down this farming thing? Because your whole world is just rocked. This idea of like eating healthy, you're going to live a healthy life, and then you have cancer. What made you continue vice going some different, easier?
Like we got to circle the wagons. I'm going to get a really safe job somewhere and all that.
What made you bear down and continue the farming endeavor?
Do you mean to answer first?
Yeah.
Truthfully, when we got the news, I'll never forget it. I'll try not to get emotional, but I remember just walking off, and we had just gotten our rinky-dink processing center, inspected and built and all that stuff. And I leaned up against the wall and just sank down and just started weeping uncontrollably. And I went to the Lord in diligent prayer and was just like, why in the world are we doing this? Like, what do you have us here for? Like, this is just, this is too much. I can't, how are we to endure all this? And
we had just invested a lot in.
I had saved up money at the Y, and literally it was just personal savings that we had put all into this, which wasn't a ton, but I mean, it was a lot for us. And anyways, it just, through diligent prayer from both of us, and I'm sure Catie will vary from my perspective a little bit, but I felt the sense of peace continuing this pursuit and just knowing that he had it handled. And I'll emphasize this as we talk, but it was not under my own strength that any of our farming pursuits have been accomplished. Like, there were thresholds that I didn't even know I could push through that, he enabled me to do so. And I take no credit. That was my
That's powerful
perspective. Yeah.
How about you, Catie? Did you feel that same sense of resolve to continue the farm, or what were you thinking at that time from business wise? Because I just get the sense like if that were Fawn going through, it'd be like, this bakery stuff seems so frivolous. Like, why? Oh man, what was your thought process there?
Yeah. Honestly, we sat on the front porch. My one scenario that I remember, kind of like Jim's scenario, just sat on the front porch thinking like, why, Lord, you brought us to this point? Where are you bringing us now? And what do we do? And we just had hands up and kind of just being like, it's all yours. So you tell us what to do. And we just kind of felt that this piece with my parents stepping up, saying, we're here for you. They were there day one from picking me up from the hospital for surgery, and were super supportive and said, we'll help you get through this. And all that Jim has put into building this processing center, and all of the money that we put into all the animals and the feed and all the bills that we kind of had stacked up against us. We had that conversation of, do we sell it all? Do we walk away from it? Do we need to pull everything? And my parents kind of said, no, we're going to step in, and where you need our support, we're here for you. So after they found this clinic, they said, let's move down to South Carolina for the summer, and we'll be here for you as you go through treatment, and Jim can be on the farm.
So we've been talking about the farm in this season of life. I'm curious if you guys would be willing to share, how did your marriage make it through this season of life? Is there anything you can point to that was like, we fell back to this, or can you tell us just about that side of things?
Yeah, Catie and I reflect on this a lot, actually. And people look at us like we have two heads occasionally as well. But I wouldn't take it back for anything. And that's not to say that I wish cancer on my wife ever, but, you know, we're often shaped and molded by adversity. You know, it's not, the good times are, you know, to be cherished, but that's not where you really find out not only who you are, but, honestly, it was not only a test of our marriage, but a test of our faith. And that's where we found that both were genuine. Enduring, you know, something where it's like, okay, my wife's going off for treatment. There is a chance, I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but there's a chance that I might not see her for very much longer. Like, that was a very real thought in my mind, and I had to be okay with that. You grow a lot from that. And our marriage, year one, ironically, was, from, I guess, the outside looking in, really easy. Like, we didn't fight that much. There wasn't a whole lot of like, oh, I'm trying to get used to you and all of your nonsense. You know, that the growing pains weren't really there as much. But having to go through this significant trial, I wouldn't say we really fought a whole lot, but it was just this like, oh my gosh, this weight that we both had to carry. I don't know, that was, a season that I wouldn't, as I said, never take back. We grew so much from that. And we knew that when one of us failed, we always had the Lord to lean on and, you know, trust in for patience for our spouse. If they're having a bad day, you know, there were many times that Catie would go through, you know, our whole effort in going with a holistic treatment was to preserve her reproductive organs, because we thought, okay, you know, if we can get through this, and we can still, you know, Catie was very motivated, and I became very motivated to have children one day. Catie's just this natural mother, and it's so cool to see that. But anyways, that was our whole effort. We didn't want her to be, you know, fried from chemo, intensive chemo, and never be able to, you know, pursue kids after that. But there were times where she would go through, you know, one of these sessions where she'd be on IV drips for, you know, 8 hours a day, and there was a light amount of chemo used. And she would just be out of it and just totally zapped for energy. And, you know, we'd have a conversation on the phone in the evening, and I was exhausted, and it was just this like kind of walking on eggshells, because you wanted to be, you know, that loving, supportive spouse, but at the same time you're like, man, you know, life kind of sucks right now. I don't know, but all that said, enduring that, and again, I will harp on this, I don't know how folks endure this life without the Lord in there, without having, you know, Jesus there, you know, with each step, holding your hand through it all. I don't understand how anyone makes it. We were, I don't know, I would say we grew a lot from all that. Do you have anything to add to that?
What happened at the end so that 5-month time away, what happened at the end? You're back on the farm. You leave South Carolina. Y'all are reunited.
Yeah, like, did you get a clean bill of health? Was that, did the holistic treatment ultimately work?
Yes, holistic treatment, it worked. I got a clean bill of health, was why I was able to be released. The initial thought of how long I would be down there was supposed to be, I believe, 3 months. And I ended up being down there for a little bit over 5. So, you know, as that 3-month time frame came, it was okay, your numbers have to look good before you can be sent home. But when I was sent home, I was still given a set of things that I had to continue with. So various therapies that I did from home, and then a, supplement regimen that I had to go through. So even though I was sent home, the battle wasn't quite like over, I guess, or it wasn't like I was good to go, and we still had to continue to navigate through things and continue with blood work to make sure that everything looked and checked out and looked good. And so I think it was 8 months after that I was finally able to be off of all of the different things that I was doing and taking, and the supplement routine and all of that.
And you're officially in remission? Do you still treat it as such in the holistic treatment side of things?
No, they do not use the word remission in holistic.
Okay. I thought that was the case, but
yeah.
I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it is one of those, when you have an autoimmune disease, you're always fighting that. Mm-hmm. So I was still continuing to go to a surgical oncologist to have checkups there, as well as through my holistic medicine doctor, because there are two different types of checkups. Mm-hmm. So your oncology checkup, I was attending UVA for those, and they are more of your traditional 3 month, 6 month scans and mm-hmm. checkups. But in alternative medicine, you're doing a lot more of checkups that are not the common person knows, and it is more blood work based and whole body based. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of having to attend both of those appointments and look at it in both ways. So
seems wise to do both, though. I mean, that's an interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people. I don't know that many people that have had to fight cancer, but it seems like of the ones I know, they kind of go one way or the other. You're the first person I've talked to that's like, I'm doing both. I'm going to go get the scans at UVA, and I'm going to get the blood work on the holistic side too. It makes a lot of sense as you're talking it through. Mm-hmm.
It was challenging to look at one doctor in the face and talk to them about what I was doing with the other doctor. Yeah, were they like, you're going where?
Yes. The UVA guy's like, you're going where? The holistic guy?
Yes.
You're going to UVA?
Yeah.
At the end of that season, what's going on with the farm? How did you progress from that first year of 1,000 broilers? Catie, were you able to physically work on the farm? What did that look like? What did the trajectory look like after that 8-month period?
I have one story that I have to tell.
Please tell.
So after being home, and I honestly don't remember the exact timeline of when this was, but once I got home, I had to continue with those therapies. So I ended up having to resign from Kindle at Lexington, which I was very sad to do, because that was I loved that work family. And so I was home and looking for a new job at the time, as we kind of went into our winter season of the farm where things slowed down a good bit. So I went to an interview up in Highland County and came home where Jim was off on the construction site. And I was in my, blazer, skirt, heels, and the pigs are out.
Well, brief background, Chuck and Luann had two intact boar. We'll say they weren't quite piglets. They weren't full-grown boars. But we were renting them, borrowing them to till our garden space. Mm-hmm. And they had let us borrow some, a little Energizer and some hot wire. And I didn't realize how important it was to keep that very, very hot at all times. Catie, continue.
So I am on the phone trying to juggle one important phone call, and the pigs, we lived right off of a major highway, and the pigs were running around, and I don't have enough time to go inside and change or anything, and can't take off the shoes because I'm in tights and those would have ripped. And so I'm running around with heels on, trying to juggle this phone conversation and
keep the pigs off
the highway.
Oh my gosh.
And so I call Jim and I'm trying to get him down there. There's no cell service. So I have traffic stopped on 220 with me in heels and a blazer and
is
these
this
two pigs
crazy
just
woman?
wandering
Yeah.
around. And I'm like, what are we doing?
And those people in those cars are probably like, what?
Oh,
This doesn't add up.
they were so entertained.
yes.
It was a sight to behold.
That's amazing.
We got him back in, but it was
Yeah.
I literally, Dave's wife Susan had to come down from the house, which was, you know, a little drive down the road to come be like, hey Jim, I think Catie needs your help back home. Would you mind running home really quick? Yeah, it was.
Needless to say, I still got the job.
Yeah.
So
Nice. There you go.
so
Way to
I
multitask.
Yeah. So I ended up working for that second. It was our second year in business as Fireside Farm, and we. I was working at the Highland Recreation Center, and was the director there through that second year, before we ended up kind of transitioning the farm into the second phase of Fireside Farm.
Yeah, and to answer your question directly, we upped the ante. We doubled our production from 1,000 to 2,000 birds. And part of the growing pains, we didn't quite have the infrastructure to do it all super seamlessly. So we didn't have enough crates to gather all the birds we needed to on processing days. So I would be out there at 4 a.m, again, before I realized a much more efficient way of collecting birds, crawling around inside the chicken tractors, you know, grabbing birds, putting them in crates. We'd start around 8:30 processing, and then around noon I'd have to go back out and collect more birds, keep processing, and so on. It was.
Do you guys catch the night before now? That's what we do.
So
We catch in the
we either
evening.
catch the night before, or now we don't use chicken tractors. We use what we call hoop coops. They're basically just little hoop houses that we pull around, which are giant kites, so you have to anchor them, but it's a lot easier to gather. They have their downsides,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, but anyways, processing birds was a huge stressor for us because it was a 14-hour day every time. And anyways, we don't have to get into the nitty-gritty of that, but that whole, how we made that work, how we bootstrapped that all together was comical, to say the least. We had no on-site cold storage. We had a couple freezers, like some old used chest freezers and an upright freezer, but you know, you got to package before you can do that. So the Highland Center, where that Joel Salatin speaking event was, they had a walk-in cooler and freezer there, and they agreed to let us take our birds up there to chill them.
Oh, that's huge.
And then bring them back. But, you know, we're driving 10, 15 minutes up the road, birds in coolers, chill them down after the ice bath or whatever. Then the next day, bring them back, package them, then take them back and freeze them. It was
That is legit.
What was your market for the poultry at the time?
the Highland Farmers Market.
Yeah.
It was, we also started off a little ambitious. We raised over 600 laying hen chicks out, thinking, because I was just looking at the numbers. I was so naive and so ambitious. I still am, but I've gotten a little less. I've gotten a little more realistic, I should say. But we raised out over 600 laying hen chicks, thinking we
my.
could just move those eggs, no problem. Didn't have a single wholesale account. We
It's a lot of eggs.
Yeah, we ate. You talk about eating protein. We ate a lot. So
Oh my goodness.
in Highland, we did start developing some wholesale relationships. We had the Monterey, the Highland Inn. Goodness gracious, I could not think of that. They would buy our poultry and our eggs, and we established a customer base with Reunion Bakery when they opened, Cranberries, and so on. So there was, we did branch out into the wholesale market after we realized, holy cow,
We got some eggs.
Way too many eggs right now.
Yeah,
And I believe
we had like 500 layers at our peak at our rental when we were managing a rental farm for Polyface, and we would get like 30 dozen eggs a day.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, for the uninitiated, basically picture like your average size cooler as a cardboard box, completely stacked with, they're like 1 foot by 1 foot trays. That's what we used because we didn't sell. We sold wholesale to, back to Polyface. But anyway, it was a major task to collect,
Just collecting.
clean, sort,
Yeah.
move the chickens, feed the chickens. Major. I remember talking to you about you guys were getting into egg layers, and I was like, be careful.
Yes.
Don't go too far down that. It's a lot. It's a lot because it can be a great business, but it's such a scale. That particular niche is you've got to hit a big scale.
Absolutely.
How did you get, that was still at Riven Rock. When did you migrate?
Yeah. What was
Oakley?
phase 2 going to Oakley?
Yeah. So Chuck and Luann, they were at a point where they were at a potential transition point, and we were just kind of like, okay, not sure what we're going to do, because we couldn't operate our whole business on the 7 acres that we were renting. And we were approached by Will and Cornelia Hodges. Will had talked about pursuing his grandparents' farm there at Oakley Farm. Was very much up in the air at the time and wasn't sure it was going to actually come to fruition. But over the course of several months, Will let us know, hey, like, this is happening. And we started meeting with them regularly down at their place before they moved onto the farm, and tried our best to kind of work out what our partnership would look like, which, you have no idea how to navigate that until you're in it. But we did our best to try to lay out a plan that we were all willing to pivot from if need be. But the move down there, moving a farm is just a circus. I mean, it is just, even for a small little farm like ours, I built 3 and we thankfully dismantled 1 eggmobiles off of old hay wagon axles. So you're not towing those, all the way down just on their own wheels. So we had to get those on trailers, haul them down. Ironically, did that in the middle of the Maple Festival. So we had probably 30 cars behind us, and we'd pull off incrementally. It was just so comical. But yeah, made that transition down to Warm Springs in 2019. Yeah. And given the larger market in Bath, and I think the easier access to Stanton and Lexington, you're not traveling over 3 different mountains. It's a pretty straight shot. We were able to really expand our offerings, and I think at our peak we scaled up to 4,000 birds. That just about killed us. If we were able to have our birds processed elsewhere, we could scale a lot more than we have. But my goodness, when you're
how many is that at a time that you're doing?
At our peak, we were doing over 200 a day. With we actually at some points we only had a crew of 5 people.
Very efficient, though.
Very efficient, but that made for some very long days. But
we went from processing once a month to once a week.
Yeah.
And again, community is everything for so many reasons. Our community, God has just given us the best community. They've stepped in with regards to my health, and then they've stepped in with regards to the farm. Yep. And the community supported us, and we had a wonderful processing crew, and still have a wonderful processing crew that they come back every year. I'm always surprised by that.
We try to provide incentive with, giving them.
Are the people volunteering? Or are you paying them, or how's that arrangement work?
We offer cash, which is not a really significant amount, but we also offer, and this is what everyone takes us up on, we offer 2 whole birds, or the equivalent of 2 whole birds and a dozen eggs, and everyone just seems to really enjoy that, because not only are they enjoying fresh chicken each week, but they're also able to stock their freezer a bit for the off season.
They come in for a 3-hour period maximum. So our long day is not there. They come in with the processing, everything set up and ready to go, and help us with the act of processing, and they head out before lunch. And so that long day is for us. Yeah.
It is, but
let me know when the next one is. I'll come. I can get a chicken for
you.
you.
Do a wait list?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed. We have some of the sweetest folks. I mean, one of our dear friends, Rowena, drives all the way from West Virginia. She comes down. I guess she's technically still in Virginia.
And another that comes all the way from Swope.
Yeah.
We have someone every week. Every week.
Awesome.
It's
When
amazing.
you talk about the value of community, what are you all doing to stimulate that for yourselves? That says a lot about you all. What are you doing to propagate that?
I mean, to be honest with you, we're outside of, our direct interaction through the processing crew, which is it's kind of like our little farm family. We participate in an event each week called Food Lore. It's Food Lore Provisions. Food Lore is kind of the umbrella. Will and Cornelia and I believe David and Aaron Cowden at Fort Lewis Farm developed this concept around dinners, like really unique experiences from a culinary standpoint. And it was the Food Lore Dinner Series that, COVID actually kind of created this offshoot into Food Lore Provisions where, folks that were scared to go to the grocery store could now just drive through the farm and pick up their groceries and go, which is kind of a novel concept. I believe the folks over at, remind me of their name, Katie and Stanton, that kind of...
Reunion Bakery?
No.
I mean, Newtown Bakery.
Newtown Baking, I think we were kind of inspired off of something that they did. It was the local food drive-through where they were providing a very similar service that we modeled off of. But that's basically now that's blossomed into this thing where folks, we have, live music, a chef that comes in as a food vendor, and then, a cider and wine bar, in a really unique venue. It's gone from throwing up pop-up tents and fold-out tables to a really nice, newly renovated stable that Will and Kenia, I think they had that done, was that 2 years ago? Mm-hmm. And that's a pretty significant community event each week.
Mm-hmm. And you're selling product there?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're one of the I guess the founding vendors through that, which is always really nice. And that's why we're incentivized to, process each week during the summer. Everyone loves being able to pick up fresh chicken. Mm-hmm.
We try to sell as much fresh before it's frozen. Mm-hmm. So we're raising out throughout the spring and summer all the chicken that will continue to sell throughout the winter. Yep. So we aren't raising and processing chicken year round. That's seasonal. So we do have that. We have the victory of the end of the season celebration, and where everything changes after we've gotten through our poultry season. Mm-hmm. That's the most rigorous thing for our mental health and physical health and everything above.
You go from a sun up to sundown kind of work day to a lot more flexibility. There's still a lot of work to do, but it can be more project based, mm-hmm. more enjoyable, not just the grunt, like let's grind through this and make it happen each day. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Where are you at? We talked cancer, mm-hmm. and then I don't want to be dismissive of that, but can you talk mm-hmm. us through so you moved back to Oakley. It's mm-hmm. 2019. We do Food mm-hmm. Lore, businesses growing. You have a customer base, and then what happens?
Then round two.
Yeah. So it was this upward trajectory. We were very excited about all that we had going on, and with COVID, everybody found their farmer and really dove into that local community that they had. And so the business was doing really well. That's when we really scaled up. And then we ended up finding out in 2022 that I had a recurrence of the ovarian cancer. And so I had already had one surgery. I was told I would need to have another surgery, a full hysterectomy, and we strapped on our boots and we just went for the same holistic treatment, this time at a different clinic. And it was in Atlanta, Georgia, or right outside of Atlanta. And so, we called mom and dad back up and said, are you willing? And of course they dropped everything. It was a huge blessing that my dad had just retired and they were both able to be a part of it. My mom was going through a lot of personal health struggles as well. So the fact that they stepped in was huge for us. But Jim continued the farm through 2022, again, by himself, and this time with a larger customer base and a larger expectation of how product was going to be presented and how much product. And we were so thankful that a lot of our wholesale customers were understanding that we needed to meet those retail demands for numerous reasons, but one of those also being to be able to continue to fill our pockets and continue to pay the bills on a lot of these higher expectations. And so Jim ran the farm while I was off at treatment, and again, had that community who stepped up in a major way. And we just are so blown away that the Lord has utilized family members, close friends, all the way through to people that I barely know, who've just showed up time and time again and have been the support of, again, personal and farm. And that's been huge, because without that, we don't know where we would be.
Yeah. We, it's really interesting how you, in hindsight, you kind of realize, wow, I really, the Lord helped me really level up in that scenario. Looking back at year one and the adversity we felt with that, this was amped up by, several magnitudes, because we're not only, like Catie said, had a larger market, but we don't just have, some broilers on pasture and some laying hens. We had, our pigs. We had a flock of sheep that get moved every 2 days. Like, everything is very management intensive. That's the whole, our whole approach to farming is, to ensure that the pasture has time to recover. We don't have to use, antibiotics or deworm all the time. And, we are focusing on the health of the animal. We're moving them constantly. So doing that by myself, plus processing and breaking birds down and packaging them, labeling them, inventory, and then selling, there were several nights where I slept on the farm, whether it was for, work into the night on product, or trying to sleep on pasture, because we had a huge predator issue that year. Between raccoons and possum, we were just getting hammered. When it rains, it pours,
I remember calling him, and he was totally not wanting to tell me that he got 2 hours of sleep that night, or, all the various stories where I'm like, Jim, if you don't take care of yourself.
You can understand that, though, in your early bred days, even now probably. But all that said, I'll just reiterate, I wouldn't change it for the world. I know I've got quite a few gray hairs in my beard now, and probably some coming in on my head too as a result. But it's when your character is tested, and your when your endurance and all that, your mental fortitude, all that is just kind of put on the line, you really find out if what you say you believe is genuine.
Catie, can you bring us up to current with where your health is right now?
Yeah. So I'm very, very thankful to say that we are, all of my numbers are looking really good. My blood work is looking good. My scans are good. And the Lord has just truly brought us through all of these trials. So I'm 6 months out from my last checkup of good results. So we're...
Praise the Lord. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yes.
And she's getting her port out next Tuesday, which is really exciting.
Where's the port?
In her, kind of like below your right clavicle, I guess.
Yeah.
What was the port for?
So the port was for receiving chemo, because even though I was receiving it at a very low dose and utilizing my food and nutrition to help combat how they inject the cancer. How they
Better not be injecting
how they inject the chemo.
Yeah.
They still have to go through a port, because it'll burn your veins otherwise. So the first time that I had a port, it actually ended up getting infected, and there was a whole thing behind that. So this second go round, everything has gone really well, and they'll be removing it next week. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll just numb it and take it out. And I was like, wait, am I not going to be put under for this? Am I not? And they're like, no, it's all easy. Quick, it takes 10 minutes. And I was like, okay. So it's a very different experience. I will say I did still have some battles and things that God brought me through, both of us through. We had to go through a second surgery that was the inability for us to have biological children. And that was very challenging for us to let go of that. Because I, as Jim already mentioned earlier, have this nurturing nature that I was just holding on to that. And, you get married and you, as a female, I look to this like, okay, now we're going to have kids and we're going to grow as a family and all the exciting things. And, so that was very challenging to learn that God had a different plan for us, and to let that go and just be very thankful for the two of us being together and watching what the Lord had for us, watching that play out. And as we're still doing that, we are very thankful that we're at the point of good health and watching the farm continue to grow and just seeing what the Lord has in store.
Man, y'all are so encouraging to me. It's so wonderful to hear this part of your story and how you both show up in it. And I just want to tell you, I think it's just the peace that you guys exude in the midst of this trial, and even just telling us about the trial is such a gift to hear, because we know it's not based in this world. Like you said, Jim, like how could you get through something without the faith you guys have, and that we share. And just wanted to tell you, that's just so encouraging for me to hear, and I think anybody listening would just be edified to hear that. So thank you guys. That is powerful.
Amidst this, what does growth for Fireside look like? Do you want to grow? What's the vision for the farm?
Truthfully, I think, we've, over the few years we've been in business, I guess, so are we going on 8 years? Yeah.
Been long in the tooth there.
Come on.
We've learned that diversification is the key to success. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, quite literally and figuratively. But outside of potentially ramping up, the sheep side of things, I do think that Catie and I, we've been beyond blessed to have had access, to being given access to land via other folks, that we've partnered with or collaborated with thus far. But autonomy is kind of something that we're striving for. It's completely understandable, but there are just things that we would like to do that renting land, it just doesn't really make all that much sense. So, I think a lot of growth will occur in our business in the event that autonomy is something that the Lord has in store for us. But as we've said previously in the podcast, we just kind of look at this from a perspective of, having our hands open and saying, okay, Lord, wherever you have us going, whatever you have us doing, we're completely content. If you have us staying put, that's totally fine. There's purpose in that. And we've seen a lot of growth and just a depth of understanding in our current situation and opportunity at Oakley with Will and Cornelia. But we're also we're open to what he has laid out for us.
You think you'll increase your number of broilers? Is that part of the trajectory, or have you found that sweet spot?
So I think sustainably, if we are going to, without hiring anyone to help full time, I think the 1,600 to 2,400 birds a year is kind of our sweet spot. We can pull that off without killing ourselves. I think we could easily expand that. And my goal, honestly, is to not just expand the quantity of animals that we raise each year, but also do it in a smarter way. I've been looking into some alternative feeding options just to supplement, because feed is expensive, especially when you source.
Your biggest expense with raising broiler chickens.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And especially when you're sourcing really high quality feed from folks like Sunrise Farms and Stewart's Draft, and like just trying to do the best that you can in nurturing your animal so that it translates to a really high quality product in the end. We experimented with fodder, and that.
Can you tell us about what fodder is? Yeah.
So fodder is just basically the process of sprouting grains and feeding. It forms this seed mat where all the roots kind of intertwine, and you get a bud, if you will.
Looks like microgreens, kind of, right?
It basically is.
Yeah.
It's microgreens for animals. Highly nutritious, very nutrient dense, but has very little caloric content. It doesn't have a whole lot of fat or protein, many of your macronutrients, but a very rich supplement. I won't get into the nitty gritty of this, but we thought we could transition entirely off of grain and strictly feed fodder. So, and we invested in this system that would produce, a ton of fodder, literally like 2,000 pounds of fodder. If you at max capacity, it could produce that per day, but we were doing that probably per week. And we weaned our laying hens off of grain onto fodder, and we went from getting, north of 300 eggs a day down to 1 egg a day.
Oh my goodness.
It was bad.
It was really, and we were feeding more fodder than we thought was necessary. So again, part of that learning curve, you quickly figure out what works and what doesn't. But I'm really wanting to expand more so into alternative feed sources to supplement, not to just replace. But black soldier fly larvae, that's a huge potential avenue to pursue. Also, partnering with local breweries and so on. That's nothing new, but just to try to utilize spent grains as a supplement for our pigs and for our chickens. Just trying to utilize, as we've kind of learned at Oakley, utilize someone else's waste products for your benefit. Just ensuring that it's utilized as opposed to just being composted somewhere or thrown away. But yeah, I don't know. We're trying to become more efficient and still produce a really high quality product for less. If that makes sense.
Have
just
you
to increase
seen
our margins.
Just a brainstorm? Have you seen the mobile range coops? You said you're doing hoop coops for pasture. If you could, it's tough in Virginia because you'd have to have a flat enough place.
Oh
but,
man, the prairie schooners.
Yeah,
those are
our
incredible.
good friend Grady Phelan in Texas ran a fleet of those, and it was amazing. They raised him. He ended up, I guess, hiring 2 farm hands. But with himself and these 2 full-time farm hands, they raised, I think it was over 100,000 birds a year.
I don't doubt it.
And basically, it's a picture like a hoop house, like you'd be at a garden center or something. Yep. Not quite as long. I think they're about 40 feet long, something like that. But you can walk through them. They're nice and tall. And you can you raise broilers in that, and every day you pull it forward to a new spot. So it's like a massive version of what we do with our smaller shelters. And the efficiency is huge because 2 guys can go out and move 5 of these things in a morning and move 2,500 birds or something like that in a couple hours of work throughout a whole day. And anyway, not that you're gonna go to 100,000 birds in production, but in terms of efficiency, if you could find the right place, that's the trick. In Texas, it looked like it was flat as a board where he was, so he could run that thing wherever he wanted. Where we are, there's a lot of topography, so anyway, just a thought. That's good. You've heard of those, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a farm out in California. I think their name is Pasture Bird.
I was going to mention Pasture Bird. Yeah.
I mean, I think I saw recently where it may have been them, it may have been someone else, where everything's automated. It all runs off solar. They have an automatic, they have a hopper with feed that, distributes feed automatically. I mean,
that's the cool thing about those. We called them mobile range coops, but is that you can take all the efficiencies of the systems in a confinement house. And instead of having this huge stationary building that's a huge CapEx that also has all its own, problems you have to solve, pathogens and antibiotics and all the stuff you need to do, it puts it in a smaller format, but you can take all the efficiencies of their feeding system, their watering system, even moving them. You can move them with a winch that's on a timer. You know, it's like
that's
all these
incredible.
things that are amazing.
But then where would you get, your daily workout at?
Yeah. How would you look? How would you look like Jim at the
Then
end?
you wouldn't look like Jim anymore.
A trade-off.
Yeah.
Hey, can I ask a question real quick? I think I'm thinking about the previous episodes. It's easier and makes a better story to talk about the difficulties of farming, your limited sleep, the hard work on processing days.
Sure.
What is the joy of farming for you?
Yeah, what keeps you coming back?
That's easy.
What is it for you that you love?
So 2 things, chief of which, and which we've touched on, is getting to just work with my wife. Some folks would look at me like I'm crazy, and I appreciate that. It is good to have space, but Catie and I, we were able to kind of dictate our own schedule and more or less work with each other day in, day out. And through that, the process of navigating each other's strengths and weaknesses, we've really found a system that works. She does things that I could never do, no matter how disciplined or like diligent I could be, particularly from a marketing standpoint. I just don't take pictures. I never think to. I never.
I have the same problem. I get to the after and I'm like, oh, I never took it before.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's already done.
Exactly. And Catie interacts with the public far more often than I do. I tend to be a bit more reclusive in that regard, but getting to work with Catie each day, and then also forming the connection that we have with our animals, outside of our broilers, which do have personality, believe it or not, but it's at a very limited capacity. Pigs obviously are so intelligent and are just like, I don't want to sound dramatic, but you literally, it's like walking up, as you pointed out earlier with the sow that gave birth to 11 piglets, seeing her nurture her babies and be so tender and cautious, and then how much trust she has in us because she knows we are a consistent, reliable source of security, of shelter, of food, and that we're not going to harm her little ones. Like, just seeing that level of intelligence, even with our sheep. Each one of them has such a distinct personality. All of our base flock we have named, which is probably a no-no, but they sincerely each have.
They earned it.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know. Seeing that, you can't find that out, in a city anywhere. You can't find that. Honestly, it makes it both more enjoyable, but also more difficult, because when you have to make tough decisions, it's like you're losing, I don't want to say a friend, but close to it. That's what keeps me coming back, that interaction and seeing them thrive. Like Catie will vouch for this. Anytime you move the sheep to a fresh paddock and seeing the excitement, and just like moving the cows, like,
oh yeah,
they get frisky, they're just jazzed to be like, oh man, we're going to a new spot, we're going to get fresh forage and so on. Seeing that excitement and that fulfillment, and just seeing everyone thrive. And not saying that we don't have animals that get sick occasionally, but I don't know, it's ironic that we can't have kids, because I feel like while certainly a human child would be far more fulfilling than any animal, this is kind of the next best thing, and we have a lot of kids to take care of. So that certainly instills a lot of gratitude and just fulfillment in my mind, I guess.
And for me, it's those moments where Jim just mentioned, like moving the sheep to fresh pasture or whatever, after you've had a very long, hard day where you're pulling your hair out, you're just aggravated, maybe 7 things have gone wrong and 2 have gone right. One of my favorite things is being able to go out and sit and just listen to the munching of grass, or just have that end of the day moment where you get to take that deep breath and take in all of God's creation and just be with the person that you love. And those little moments that maybe don't get to happen every week, but every so often, when that happens, it brings all of the frustration and just like shoves it down the toilet. It's really hard to put a tangible, like, understanding of those little experiences. But that definitely brings it back around. And on top of that, I know I keep bringing this up, but the community, our processing team is so encouraging of us. And we love hearing that feedback from our team of, you guys are doing so great. Your product is so wonderful. We have some processing team members who have written little notes to us that, it's 4 years ago and it's still posted on our fridge. And just hearing that feedback, because the challenge is very real. And there are a lot of times where we're like, Lord, why are we doing this? So receiving that from our community is huge to just have that like support there of y'all are doing great.
Yeah, I hear you guys saying as like a theme that connection is just at the base of all this, like connection with the land and just the beauty of it, connection with the animals themselves, connection with your, the people in your community. I think that we talked about this last podcast with Kevin and Amanda Green, that so much of our like culture in the West is very disconnected. You've got your job that you drive to in your own personal car, and then you get home to your patchwork house that's just like the house next, no bad, but there is there can be this sort of underlying lack of connection that in farming, I think for all the hardship that it is to live that lifestyle, I certainly resonate with everything you're saying, that underneath it all, that deep sort of sacred connection that you get when you're working the land, working with animals, and then serving your community in that way it's powerful. It's hard to let go of once you really start farming. I think really any place-based business, Dan, I know in the bakery, there's a similar level of you're making this product for people to eat and bring into their homes and make kids lunches with and special dinners with, and with the bakery. And there's that connection's at the core of it.
Well, at the inception of Fireside, Catie and I are trying to go through all your traditional like approaches of like, okay, we got to write our business plan. We got to have our farm name, our slogan or whatever. And, what we landed on from I guess you'd call it a slogan, our motto or whatever, was stewarding his land, nurturing his people. And that's really like where I would say the majority of our motivation is derived from. It's like there is just this overwhelming sense of purpose in that overrides sort of the rational thought of like, you're doing all this, you're working this many hours per year for that payoff, really? Yeah. And I'm not trying to sound like, oh, poor me. Like, no, I'm choosing to do this. We could, as you said, Dan, like we could do other stuff. But I think it's that sense of like purpose and duty and seeing others benefiting from what you're providing that brings so much joy to what we do.
Love it.
If you were to go back, this is a question for both of you, but if you could grab young Jim, who just got his signed book from Salatin, and say, Jim, let me tell you some things about farming that you have to know going forward. So a question for maybe those considering going into farming, or like myself, who is still an aspiring farmer, but a terrible one at that. Like what words of wisdom do you have for the young farmer?
If I can answer this first, I would say be willing to embrace adversity. That is something that will come across your path inevitably, and probably more often than you count on. That's not to say that farming is all, storm clouds and, scary hurdles to overcome. There's so much to find joy in. But if you don't have thick skin, and if also, I hate to say this, but if you're not okay with death, you will not make it. If you're rearing animals, death is something that happens on the farm regardless of what you're doing. And being able to navigate that is often difficult. But if you're able to, endure that, I would say, you've got what it takes, but you have to be willing to push through. There's a limitless supply of adversity in farming, but that's kind of what makes it so great. It's like problem solving every day in some capacity.
we definitely jumped right in to farming. With Jim quitting his desk job, I did navigate working those first 2 years before we both were full-time farming. But that aspect that you've mentioned before, buddy, of just jump in, and that's a huge part of it. There's a point where we did just kind of slowly tiptoe in, starting out with 1,000 birds and then increasing from there. But it's scary to kind of let go of the real world expectation and jump in, but to do it full blown, go for it. But my biggest learning curve would definitely be that I had expectations of how it would look and how it would all play out, and what would come from it. And you read books or hear other people talking about it, and the biggest thing is to be able to navigate the changing of those expectations, and that it may not turn out exactly how you wanted or how you planned or how you expected. And so just not letting that overwhelm you or get you down or get you to the point of giving up, but just continuing to navigate that and change and move forward.
Adapt, overcome, repeat. That's basically it.
Love it. I love it.
Can we move into the lightning round to close this out?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys. So the lightning round is meant to be short questions with relatively short answers. Feel free to expound as necessary, but we usually like to open up the lightning rounds now with the question of, what is your favorite footwear around the farm?
Ridge cut.
Yeah,
Ridge cut.
Slip on boots, the Chelsea style.
Yeah.
That's
Can you hold it up for everybody to see?
I will say mine
is there
was-
a brand we can be sponsored by next time?
These are Wolverine, which ironically I normally go through. These are my, as you guys put, my city shoes.
Townies.
Yeah,
my townies.
town shoes, they look fantastic.
So they're in pretty good shape. My other shoes, not so much. But this is the first pair of boots that I've gotten. I just retired my first pair of them. I wore them for 2 years.
Well,
Normally
that's
the
a good
sole
boot.
comes off, it falls apart. It just deteriorates in about, usually it's 8 to 10 months. That's the most I've gotten out of boots in the past. I also love the fact that you just slip them on. There's not lace up. You don't get the ankle support that you would otherwise, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Love it.
And prior to that,
I'm
I
a
think
big
I had
slip-on guy.
Timberlands, so
Okay.
those were a great.
I mean,
But-
muck boots are essential.
Yeah,
But
boots.
those are for more sloppy occasions. These are my daily drivers for sure.
Muck Boot's been a popular one. Hopefully, again, if you're listening, Muck Boot, we're open to
Two
sponsorship.
weeks in a row.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks in a
They
row.
gotta
Muck.
come
I mean,
calling.
come on. You're up.
All right. One question we've been trying to synthesize, and I love to ask, but considering financials, considering the future, whether to grow, whether not to, what is enough?
Oh man, that is a really great question. I mean, truthfully, my perspective, I try to shape, I guess, what I perceive as enough being what is sustainable. I want to maintain a high sense of joy in what I do, and while I am ambitious and oftentimes unrealistic, when our pursuits put stress or strain on our relationship, I know to dial it in. So finding a happy medium where we're both thriving and we're both content. There's not really a set number, annual income or a set number of animals or whatever. It's more or less that revolves more so around our lifestyle and our day-to-day. I know that we are striving to just, find a deeper and more connected sense of community from a faith perspective. We have some really good friends in Bath that we lean into for that fellowship. But that's something that we've been desiring. So I don't really think that pertains to farming so much, but it also kind of does. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really answering your question all that well.
Good.
But
No,
that's great.
Would you add anything, Catie?
I got sidetracked with what he was saying.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
Great. I think, what is enough is a question I like to.
Yeah, especially as
Linger
entrepreneurs, there's that balance
Yeah.
between wanting to always, it's like you always have another idea for something.
Well,
And
Yeah.
what's the motivation there? And how do you choose the idea to go forward with? And at the end of the day, what's that all about anyway? What's the,
I know. Yeah, there's a thirst to diversify and do something new, and like, year to year, I think we always come up with something like, "Ooh, hey, we're offering this now," or whatever. I think that's a healthy thing to maintain, but at the same time, I've never really been motivated by the numbers, I guess. I've been motivated more so by, making ends meet, thriving as a couple. But yeah, what else can we offer? What does our community need? More of a needs assessment of, the bigger picture, as opposed to like, I want to make X amount, or I want to, diversify into this, it's
It's good.
Okay, so back to my questions, which have much less deep theme to them. So I call this, the question is, what is your guilty pleasure right now? And I'm going to just give a small preface. So we had a friend of ours, Red Dowdell, on the podcast a few weeks ago. He's a weightlifter. He owns a gym here in Lexington. Great guy.
Nice.
A little sidebar was that he's a motorcycle guy too. He went out to Sturgis, all this stuff. I used to have a motorcycle back in the day. Since that interview, Red, if you're listening, I have been just researching what bike would I buy right now. I've been like watching YouTube videos on reviews of motorcycles. Jill's like, "What are you doing? Are you working in there?" And I'm like, "Yes," and watching this YouTube review. So anyway, it's my like dumb guilty pleasure. I'm not gonna buy a motorcycle right now, but that's where I've gone. Dan was saying it's UFC fights for him. He loves
MMA.
Going in the MMA rabbit hole. So
Nice.
do you guys have a guilty pleasure, or is it just too much farming?
Would hobbies
Oh, sure.
count as my guilty pleasure? Because it's not like when you have time to allocate for a certain thing that you enjoy, it's like, I could go in a million different directions, but I don't know. This is going to be kind of strange, but whenever I get the chance to, I thoroughly enjoy blacksmithing, like forging.
Oh, that's awesome.
But
What do you make? Like,
usually it's
Horseshoes?
utility. Yeah. Usually it's utilitarian stuff around the farm. Like, I had to, fabricate some anchors for the hoop coops, and like, I love working with metal. It's just something I'm not that familiar with. So that really intrigues me, being able to take something that could, break bone and heating it up to where it acts like silly putty. I mean, it just kind of blows my mind that that's even possible. So
that's perfect.
yeah,
Katie,
great
what would you
answer.
say?
thankfully, my guilty pleasure can be beneficial to the farm, but photos and like editing of photos,
man.
but can also be the bane of Jim's existence.
like, babe, you gonna get out of the mini truck? Like,
Still, like I am supposed to be doing farm chores, and I stop on the piglets for the next 45 minutes, and I'm taking the cutest photos I've ever seen, and all of the things that can keep that like daily task needing to move forward, where I'm in my own world for a while. But yeah, definitely my guilty pleasure.
Yours are still very productive. I feel like the next one's going to be, and we memorize scripture as our guilty pleasure.
oh my gosh.
We
Dan and I are just doing
We have
things that
some
are
room
no
to
benefit
improve.
to anyone but ourselves.
yeah.
I don't. In the winter time when it gets darker earlier, we definitely like. I don't know. We really love Seinfeld,
Yeah.
and so
classic.
like
My guilty pleasure
we'll
is
end
sleep.
up. Yeah. So
I'm
we
kidding.
definitely like lay low in the evening in the winter time. Like you can't be outside as
Yeah.
much during
Yeah.
that time frame.
Hey, it's been a pleasure having you. Thanks for coming. Buddy spoke to the encouragement you provide. It's so encouraging to hear your story. And I think the takeaway that I have from listening to you all is when you talk about establishing the vision, the business plan. I get very wrapped up in the numbers and what's going to work, and it sounds from your story and everything that you've experienced adversity wise, you have such a healthy perspective on life and the balance of business and what's important and the community aspect. Such a calming balance is what the perspective you just kind of exude. That's real encouragement to me. So
yeah, and I love how you've had major things in your life and major, adversity, things you've had to overcome, farming, health-wise, and I really think life is lived in that tension, and you guys are the kind of people that lean into the tension, which is really encouraging, and in such a, as you said, Dan, such a peaceful way. So thank you for sharing your story with us today. We'd love to have you back again in the future, hear how Fireside's doing and any updates you guys have. Also, could you tell folks that are listening where they can find out more about Fireside Farm and where they can find you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So we currently are just in the We currently are just in the Hot Springs, Warm Springs area, and are expanding back out from that to Stanton, Lexington, and Charlottesville. But currently you can purchase products through Food Lore Provisions and picking up on the farm, or we will deliver. We haven't quite gotten to the point of being able to ship, but are hoping for that aspect as well.
Awesome.
You can also find our products at the Red Hen here in Lexington, intermittently. The Inn at Gristmill Square there in Warm Springs. Those are our two primary wholesale markets, and then there's some other places, Mountain Field Market in Clifton Forge, Highland Roots in Monterey, Virginia. That's just to name a few. But
awesome. And on Instagram and everywhere else.
Yes. All the social
media world.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks,
guys.
Thank you guys for having us.
Thank you.